Hey, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Jen. No, not Jen. Eka and Sharon today. Eka is one of our colleagues at your teen, and we're so glad to have her. I'm a little, I don't know. I'm a little unhappy though, Eka, because I understand you're somewhere warm and so is Jen, and I am currently awaiting a snowstorm here in Cleveland. And I think a lot of people are getting this giant snowstorm.
Yes, I understand that. I have my daughter who's supposed to come visit, and that may not happen. So we'll have to see what happens.
Oh, I hope so. I hope she can.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell us if you're watching whether you're getting this snowstorm or what the weather is. Do I want to ask this? Because what if they say it's 75 and sunny? Will I be unhappy? I don't know. But tell us where you are if you're watching, and we'll see how it goes. Today, Eka and I are talking. I think Jen and I started talking about this last week. I forget how we got on this topic, but we said we should talk about this another week. Like cultivating those adult relationships for our teenagers that aren't with us. And I think it started because we realized they won't always listen to us, or maybe your daughters always listen to you, Eka.
Oh yeah.
So I was thinking about the different ways we can do this, and some of them I think we can actually, well, first of all, I think we should know that we're not alone in doing this. I don't think we're meant to be doing this alone. And a lot of times we can hire people to help us with our kids. Like, that sounds weird, but that is what it is when we're asking the doctor for advice. We have to pause. We have some input here. 2 feet of snow on the ground, Tara. Oh, southeastern Mass. You must be in Boston.
Yeah, we have relatives there, so we've been tracking that.
Well, I don't think you're getting it this time. I heard it's warming up there. I have some friends who told me it's supposed to thaw a little bit. And we already have a foot of snow on the ground here in Ohio, too. At least in northern Ohio. No snow in Maryland, but cold. Oh, you must have had a little snow last week with the nor'easter, but I guess it's already gone. So back to actual teen business. I was thinking, like, anytime we ask the pediatrician for advice or talk to, you can't talk to your kid about a certain issue. They won't disclose something to you. Say you're worried about, an eating disorder or something. Maybe with the pediatrician, you can tell the pediatrician what's going on, and they can sort of subtly talk to your kid. And so that's like the most basic. Everybody, I hope, has a pediatrician that we can enlist. But what are some other thoughts on how we can get adult support? What do you think, Eka?
Well, it's really funny that when I was thinking about this, it never occurred to me about professionally. I went directly to kind of more personal, not personal, but more of like in their scope. For instance, well, I'll tell you so I'm going to preface this by saying that if you guys know anything about like your team, we all have kids different levels. And like me, I've graduated from the teenage years. So I'm probably about 10 years ahead of Sharon with my kids.
Eka's my big sister because my kids are in high school and middle school. So and Eka's in 20s, right?
Early my kids 20s? Are in their 20s, right? So a lot of the things that I talk about, I'm talking about them obviously retrospectively and sometimes with rose-colored glasses, or sometimes really frank about myself, like, wow, if I could do that again, I would. And if any of you guys know, I have been nothing but completely honest about my mothering and my parenting, and it has not always been rainbows and unicorns.
We love it.
So I put it out there, and I do because I know my kids aren't watching, because if they knew, they would be like, really, Mom? You have to tell those stories. So my perspective, I had something that happened with me recently is my daughter had really good friends in high school, and they were at my house a lot. I mean, and one of them got married recently, and we were friends with the parents you know, I mean, we knew them obviously, but we weren't, you know, friendly with them. And we got invited to her wedding. And when I got the save the date, I started crying to think that I had played such an important role in her life, that here she was in her 20s inviting me to her wedding, not as her parents' friends, because, you know, the parents have a list of friends, but we wouldn't have been on her parents. I'm getting shivers thinking about it. And I was really, I started crying, and I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to her, the friend. And I said, I am so touched. I'm getting weepy. I'm so touched that you considered me such an important part of your life, that even in your late 20s, you're inviting me to a wedding. And it was, and that's the kind of relationship you want your kids to have with other people's parents. Do you know what I mean, Sharon? Do you know, I mean, do you see? So it was really moving for me to know that I actually, probably my husband and I both played that kind of role in her life, that she felt that she wanted us at her wedding.
Right,
So,
right.
And so I didn't go to the professionals. I went to that kind of, I went there when I was thinking about this subject. So,
I mean, I think that's the ideal situation. And where your kid feels like they have this whole network of people they can go to. Maybe they don't sometimes feel like they can go to their own parents. It's not in addition to, but instead of. And we've had a couple of people write for us recently about being that person, like you, Eka, like how they, maybe if Jessica's watching, she can share some of those articles. We had one about, you know, your kid talks to me about the things that they're not talking to you about.
Right.
And we had another one who was saying, was the house where, come on over. You know, there's always a safe place here, because some of the kids in their kids' social network didn't have that kind of safe place to land. I mean, I personally, I don't like the idea, just to be frank. I don't like the idea that someone's talking to somebody else about their most personal emotions and feelings instead of me.
Right. You know what? I was going to go there next. As much as I know they need it, I wanted to be their best friends. Like, you know what I mean? I wanted them to come to me with everything, but I quickly realized that that wasn't going to be it. And it was, you know, I mean, how do you say, like, you think about, you want to be their best friends. You want them to come to you for everything. And at some point you realize that that's not going to happen. And for me, it was like a stab in the heart. And I think sometimes I was way too thin-skinned to have kids, because so many of these things were so painful. And even though I knew they were going to happen, but I was like, no, what do you mean you're rejecting me? You know, so I took a lot of things personally, which I think we've talked about before. About,
oh yeah, as much as we're told not to take it personally,
well, you can't help it. I mean,
know.
You put like everything, like for me, I mean, I gave up my job. Like this was my, you know, and so to me, what do you mean it's not me? So that was something that was hard for me. You know, I'm going to admit it. It was really hard to give up, knowing that they weren't coming to me, you know. But I mean, do you feel like that, Sharon, sometimes too, right? Or
yeah, I mean, I don't want that to be the lane where the adult support is. I want to control it. I want it to advance my agenda, which is it's more stuff like, well, I want you to talk to this teacher about, you know, should I take this AP class or something, because maybe I want them to do it, but they don't want to listen to me. What I want them to do is to talk to a teacher who will tell them the same thing I'm going to tell them. And like, so I had this need for not only to be the sounding board, the emotional landing place, you know, the friend. I want the control too. And I'm just being frank, you know, we can't control our kids, but I want to use this to control my kids to some degree, because there are certain things I want them to do that I think are good for them. And I think I know best because I'm an experienced adult. So I want, if they won't listen to me, I want other adults to tell them that.
Well, you know, I had, my younger daughter was a ballet dancer, and she was very close with the director of her school. And basically whatever the director of her school said, she did.
Mm.
So is she around? So sometimes when like there were things happening at home, excuse me, I would talk to the director and I would say, could you tell her to, whatever, like she needs to, be nicer to her sister, whatever. And so the director would mention in a ballet class, I hope as young dancers, you're all being kind to your sisters, kind of thing. It was a little manipulative, but, I knew that I could get my message through, they can all be told to be kinder to their sibling, kind of thing.
Right.
And so then she'd come home and she'd say, Miss blah, blah, blah said that we should be nice to our siblings,
Oh, she even said it.
Yeah, she would come home and she'd be like, what? But this is when she was obviously like she was younger. When she was a teenager, we were done with that. But I mean, for a couple of years it worked. But she listened to somebody, and I was able to kind of message through. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I tell her we don't want her eating McDonald's. I mean, it wasn't like that kind of thing. But just some. So they did listen to other adults. But I think it's also really important because. Well, then my older daughter, she joined the youth group at church, and I loved the women and the men who ran the youth group, and I really trusted their opinions, and they, had the same agenda as we did. So we were good with that. And so a lot of the stuff that they were talking about in youth group was basically parroting what we believed. So that was good to have a second group of adults kind of reinforcing our belief system. And so that wasn't in my control, but I knew what kinds of messaging they were saying to the kids. I don't know if other people, if you guys are out there, if you felt that way too, but I really kept in contact, whatever, knowing what was happening. I still wanted to know, because things can go a little askew sometimes as we've seen in some of the religious organizations. So it wasn't like I was like go at it, but I did, I was pretty friendly with people who ran those, so I knew what they were like. So that was a big one for me. I don't know, Sharon, if you have organized things like that for your kids or not.
Well, I mean, we belong to a church where our kids do certain classes and things, and there are trusted adults in charge of that, and that's kind of an important point, because it's, again, I feel like for me it comes back to this I don't want to let go of all control as a parent, and I think that's right. We need to make sure the boundaries are there if we think our kids are associating with adults whose values and judgment are what we want for our kids. So, I mean, I think, like a place of worship is an obvious way that we can do something as a family. And if we can trust the people in charge, that's a way we can steer our kids towards these other adults who will sort of round out our, expand our sphere of influence to bring the values, that we want to share in sort of a bigger community way. I think that's a really good.
And I think some people have that also with like scouting. If they're in the Girls and the Boy Scouts.
Yep.
So that was a big one for us. I think in our kids' extracurricular activities, I think there were a lot of people that kind of had the same scope of what they wanted for their kids, because extracurricular activities keep your kids kind of on the straight and narrow, keeps them, they have to go to school, then they have to do something after school, and it really helps mold. They have to figure out their timing and homework and all that, and then having parents who are kind of following in that same path, because to do something seriously, like both of my kids picked something and they were very committed, 5, 6, 7 days a week they were doing this, and to be with like-minded kids sometimes takes like-minded parents. So I knew that that they were being kind of exposed. That's the same kind of adults that were believing that, you know, like if like our older one was a swimmer, if you're a swimmer at the level she was swimming, this isn't just like a fly by night kind of thing. This is something that takes commitment from the, you know, the whole family. And so other families that were doing it together, you kind of knew they were on that same path. So
Right.
so I had, you know, great example. Mindy was one of them. I mean, Mindy, that's how I met Mindy. Mindy was a swim parent with me. And, you know,
Mindy's one of our your teen colleagues.
Yeah, which you guys have probably seen us in behind the scenes. And that's how Mindy and I first met. And, you know, knowing the time commitment and also the personal commitment and dedication these kids have, you know, you find these other like-minded parents who kind of believing that. So then your kids know that these parents are part of their sphere. And so that's another kind of way for me, I thought was a way that they had other people to talk to that I was okay with. But, you know, we just keep going back to this control, Sharon, don't we? I mean, it really, you kind of want to do it all, and be it all, but it just, but you know, but you can't. I mean, realistically, you can't, you know, that whole cliche, it takes a village.
Yeah. On that note, Eka, one more thing I was thinking about informally, the village. I think texting is actually really good for this because, you know, you wind up getting the text, the cell phone numbers of lots of adults in your community, in your kids' circle, even if they haven't seen, you know, their kid used to be friends with your friends. If they see your kid out and about and there is this sort of report back thing, not like everybody's spying. And sometimes it's really nice. Like, hey, I saw your kid at this event and they were being so sweet and whatever. So you just know that there are people looking out for your kid, you know, people who know your kid. There's something about just knowing that your kid is seen by other adults when you're not there. And it gives a feeling of, you know, that there's support for you as a parent and for your kid growing up.
And you know, and I think there's also, well, and I also have siblings, and my girls would talk to their aunts. They're pretty close to their aunts. And there's almost like, I don't know, I think there's almost like an underlining, not really said code that if your child does confide in somebody, and it is pretty serious, that person will tell you, you know. I know that, I believe that. I mean, I would hope, and I would hope that the adults in your children's sphere would say like, oh, you know, she's, you know, drinking, or she's, you know, whatever, she's been sneaking out of the house, that they hopefully would tell you. And I think that's part of making sure you have the kind of the right influence around your children, that they would want to help, you know.
Yeah, and they know who you are too. You know, it's not your kid's not anonymous. They know, they care enough to care about what they're doing, and they know the person to let know, and they're supporting us as parents when they do that.
Right. So. And you know, I know that I had a phone call from a parent who said, this is, you know, a really hard conversation, but this is what your child told me. And so, I mean, I've had those, and they're a hard conversation to have, but then you know, as much as you want to shoot the messenger, you know, they're not doing it to be, you know, horrible and make your life miserable. They're really telling you because they care and they want to see what's best for your child. And that is invaluable. I mean, it's absolutely invaluable to me, is for someone to do that, as much as I'm mad at them, because how dare you tell me this? I mean, I think we all kind of like, that's our first reaction. But I tried really hard to think that everyone was going towards the same goal. Like, you know, it's to raise the child, it's to make sure they're healthy, and to make sure they're safe, you know, all those important things. And it's not just you. I mean, it's never been just
parents.
And
I'd like to think that if you don't feel like you have this network of people who can support your kid, that's what your teen is here for. Not everybody, people move a lot, or for whatever reason they live in a community that isn't like this. We're always here to be those people, to offer that advice and support. So, well, that's what we hope anyway.
And then we have that great Facebook group.
Oh yeah, we do.
We have a Facebook group, which is unbelievable. I go on there, and it's a closed group, and it's, so if you guys are interested, if Jessica, if you're there, maybe you can put the link to it. And so you can go on there and ask all kinds of questions and tell your story. And it is an unbelievably supportive group. I'm amazed at how kind and knowledgeable people are about situations. I mean, sometimes the internet can be so cruel, and people will go on there and they will tell their story and ask for advice. And I think, oh my gosh, you're just going to get shredded. And they're not. People are just like, you got this, mama, and everything. And it's beautiful. It really is. So
it is really
I'm
nice.
using it, Sharon. It's just unbelievable. I mean, we talk about it. We talk about it all the time, about what an amazing group it is. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Jessica.
Oh, and the other thing is, I know we keep talking, but we have so many things to share. In our newsletter, there is a button you can press to write an email and ask your dilemma, and we will ask an expert and, anonymously share an answer. And, as long as we don't get too many, we try to answer as many as we can. So if you're not part of our newsletter, you should be part of that too. Jessica, can you add the newsletter link?
Jessica's awesome. She's our producer. Thank you, Jess.
And one more thing we're supposed to share. Tomorrow morning at 10:30 Eastern, our expert guests will have 2 expert guests, and they're going to be talking about puberty with your kids, and like how to tell them they're smelly, and like all the tricky, dicey things that come up during puberty. So join us tomorrow for that one. That will be Sue with Cara Natterson and Vanessa. I'm forgetting Vanessa's last name.
This happened on Monday too, didn't it?
What's that?
I think this happened on Monday. We forgot Vanessa's last
name. No,
I
think it was poor Vanessa. I think it was her first name that time.
Okay.
Vanessa Kroll Bennett. There we go. Okay. I got it.
So can I just tell you a quick story about when you said smelly puberty? So when my daughter was younger, she was probably like in 4th grade, and she went to a friend's house, and she came home and she was so smelly. And I was like, she is way too young to be this smelly. I was like, oh my gosh, is she going through puberty? She's so young. I was and so because she just gets in the car and I'm like, ugh. So I take, she takes her clothes off and everything, and I go to wash them and I pick them up and I realize, oh my gosh, it wasn't that she was smelly, it's that my friend had been cooking and she had been in the kitchen and she was smelling like onions and peppers. And
oh my gosh.
And so I called my friend and I told her the story. She goes, I am so sorry. I go, no. I was like, how can you be so smelly, so young and so fast? You weren't smelly yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
And it was the onions and peppers my friend was cooking for dinner.
I used to come home. I used to work at a perfume factory, but it would spill and you get these weird combinations of things. And I come home stinking like this stuff. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. I guess we'll let everybody go. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Eka, especially for joining us as our special guest this week.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love coming on here because you guys make, every time I, like with you or Jenny, you make me remember a lot of the stuff. And I'm going to always be honest, even though you might not want to hear it, but I'm going to be honest about it.
We love your stories and we love your honesty.
Okay. Thanks for having me, Sharon. It was great. All right, you guys.